Hey Brickmaniacs, welcome back to another episode in the Designer Studio. We're taking a look today at the new Panzer III kit, the fully loaded Panzer III kit, just printing elements everywhere.
Yes.
Awesome custom figure. But once again, we have another really cool side-by-side to do here. So this is a, what'd you say, Generation 3 Panzer III?
Yeah, I made my first Panzer III back in like 2002.
Mm-hmm.
It didn't get made into a kit until about 2009.
Mm-hmm.
Life intervened, yeah, this must be like, I don't even know the date. It has Brickmania track links on it.
Yep.
So these are early kits because it has the single wides. We didn't yet have the double wides.
Mm-hmm.
But the one thing that I was trying to do back in maybe 2012, around that time, we were trying to make what we call like budget price vehicles. This isn't, we had like what we call the DuraBuilder series. I think that's what we actually called them. They were like $100 or less was the goal.
Oh, okay.
And we made these tanks, made models for, try to make something decent for $100. We ended up with a Chaffee, our original Huey, and a Panzer III. And this is a dark gray version of what was that original budget priced kit. And the reason this one's in dark gray is because when we started the Barbarossa theme.
Right.
Brickmania was good. There was the first time we said, hey, let's do a whole campaign theme. I built one in dark gray just so we could release it for the Barbarossa because we wanted to have what would look like a Panzer III at 1941 during the Operation Barbarossa. This was ended up being it. It's based on the original sort of DuraBuilder. It is built like a brick.
Right.
It's solid. Except for that.
Except for the minifig.
Of course. Built like a brick. This, I believe, is the actual one that was on the cover of Operation Barbarossa, the book.
Which is the one that you can build out of the instructions in that book.
So this is it. You may notice, that you look at the tracks, there's a difference in the size. Did not have these 1.5 wides, but overall the tank body is still about the same.
That's very impressive. Talk about building to scale and using those blueprints, because considering all the new Lego elements that this model contains, comparatively, to maintain that shape is very, very impressive.
This turret, I mean, this turret is almost unchanged from the turret I built in 2013. So
wow.
There is a myth out there that I borrowed this turret design from somebody, which is kind of, for me, it's a laughable thing, because I'm like, dude, that's almost 20-year-old design.
Sure.
So the only thing that really didn't exist back when I did it is the cheese slopes. See, my original one just had brick slopes on the sides, or inverted slopes. The cheese slope design, it was like once the cheese slopes became available, I was like, oh, I'm using that for sure.
Changed a lot, yeah.
So. I also, the evolution, when Will made that gun, because I used to have to shove it was an MG42, because he hadn't developed the MG34 yet. I'd have to stick it through a piece of flex tubing and then stick it in a brick to get the gun to stick out the front. And when he came out with that MG34, that was like, oh, that's a lifesaver.
Yeah,
I can now stick the MG34. It just fits perfectly right through that tech.
It's such a great piece of detail. I mean, seriously, like when you have to use the bars.
Still use it today. Still have that same gun mount. It is genius. If by all means, all you users at home, go ahead and steal it.
Yeah, it was fantastic.
I don't know if it was by design or by accident, but that works perfectly. So this is the old one. You can see that there's a huge amount of detail difference. This thing, and I think when the kit's probably sold for about $1.25. It didn't quite. By this time, it wasn't still under the $100 mark.
It's a big kit to be $100. I mean, that would be really impressive.
So this is like 3 or 4 iterations later. So if you were to look at like the Brickmania World War II archives, you would notice that there's been other refinements of this design. We have had a couple different tan ones. Last year, we did a whole series of tan Panzer IIIs. This one is a further refinement of those. So wanted to go back to that early, that 1941, 1942 era Panzer III before they started painting them all tan. And this is the classic look. This is the model, the F model, and the F model originally came with a little gun. And why we're here. So this is the long gun.
Yep.
The original ones had a 37mm anti-tank gun. They upgunned them midway during the Model F production to the 50mm gun because the armor that they encountered in Russia was a lot tougher than they anticipated. They couldn't, the T-34, the KV-1 tanks that the German army encountered, like, oh, these are way more.
We need a
better
gun.
armored,
yeah.
And even they're having trouble against the Matilda tanks in North Africa. So they're like, okay, we got to upgun this thing. So they took basically the was a PaK 38, 50 millimeter anti-tank gun, stuck it in a tank. And it actually kept getting longer and longer barrel over time. They couldn't fit the 75 that was eventually put into the Panzer.
I was just about to ask you where they had to stop, because obviously this isn't a big turret.
No, they couldn't fit the big gun that's in the Panzer IV. So the Panzer IV ended up taking the role of the Panzer III. Panzer III was originally designed to be the tank to destroy other tanks, smaller, faster, could go knock out other tanks while the Panzer IVs were supporting the infantry. They ended up reversing that role midway through the war.
Interesting.
These most of them were turned into Stug 3s, so they kind of actually stopped making most Panzer IIIs, used the hulls, put that big 75 millimeter gun in it, and made a tank destroyer out of it. Eventually, or assault gun or whatever you want to use it for, the Sturmhaubitze or Sturm.
which is a smart choice considering the lack of effectiveness that reached the further along it got in the war. Yeah.
So let me actually just show you real quick. So this is the long gun. If you wanted to just disassemble this gun, you do have a tube in here.
Oh, and the tube makes the small gun?
Right. Here's your small gun. Just take off all those these Technics. And I should point out that these Technic pins, they don't make that in this color anymore. So there's just a limited time that we're going to be able to continue to make this.
Okay, there you go. You heard it there. That's really cool, though. I think a lot of people who got this, if they want to be able to customize between the two, probably could have figured it out. But
also, the original ones didn't have the turret bustle. So you have this turret bustle, which I designed this one so you could actually just take it off. One stud connection. You could take this tile off the back.
Put the tile on there.
Replace this with that tile, and bam, you've got the original.
So that's Ausf.
It's Ausf F, but the early Ausf.
The early Ausf.
So now you don't have the turret bustle, but you still have this printed turret number on there.
Dude, that's so cool. I'm so glad you did that.
So this is the way it would have started out, and you could take these track links off because the original models didn't have the extra tracks.
Sure.
Too, and half the stowage wasn't on the original. So kind of like lighten the load, and you've got the original. So there is. The thing that stands out the most to me is all the printed pieces.
Well, I was going to say, I think there's literally on this entire tank, there's 2 stickers, and that's these side ones here that cross elements. Otherwise, everything else that you're looking at on camera, including these awesome wheels, are all 100% printed. And that literally is what makes this the non-budget version, the Cadillac of Panzer IIIs, because we spared no expense in making this thing every bit as awesome as possible.
Right, and a lot of things that I wasn't previously happy with that had to be happy with because of budget constraints. I was like, I'm going to fix this stuff and I'm going to make it so that I'm 100% happy with. Let me just fix
a tank for Dan.
Yeah,
a tank up to the Siskin standards.
We'll take the gloves off, so to speak, and say no restrictions. So you have printing on the deck, printing on all the little panels for the vision ports. The turret sides printed. Every wheel is printed. Those are actually
including the spare.
Yeah, of course you can see that on top. You got printing on the back, and of course the guy is. Landon will go over that, but it's 100% printed. It does come with a extra set of turret numbers, though.
Oh, cool.
So the sticker sheet does. You do have these 2 stickers here. It does come with different turret numbers. So these printed turret numbers on the side, if you wanted to make companion tanks or different units, there are stickers that can go over those. So you can change it up. So if you buy 3 or 4 of them, you're not all going to be the same one.
Okay, cool. Customization as always, which is awesome.
I should point out that this antenna, just like the real tank, you can raise the antenna
up and down.
Yep. It's this one you have to actually take off to do it. New pieces, new tricks.
Yep, just another example of the evolution.
Yeah, I couldn't. The original. The original earlier versions of the Panzer III had a smooth motion in it. I could do it, but when I lowered down the hull to make it more compact, I had to get rid of that feature. And I should add that remember when I was talking about the 24 tooth gear being like $10 or $5 or $10
right.
in the original Sherman. It's actually available in this color quite easily now.
Oh, good. Okay, cool.
Still using that gear, but
so not much hope for these pieces necessarily, but we do have some hope for the other elements that are included in
right, there's going to be a certain point where you run out of those and then you can't make this tank anymore.
Well, there you go. So get on it while you can. We'll have some more pre-orders of this available soon. But otherwise, let's dive in a little bit with Landon here and hear more about this awesome figure included with this tank. All right, now we got Landon in here to take a closer look at the Panzer III Commander. So this is already a super detailed kit, but we got a really cool custom figure to go along with this as well. Why don't we work from the bottom up, because then we can end with that awesome headpiece.
We got the boots I was going to say on his feet, because Yeah,
that's where boots go. Indeed.
The boots are on the feet, obviously. Then moving up, we have the belt, and there's a little bit of a cool texture going on that belt. It's a simulated leather texture going on, and that's actually just done with, I think it's clear ink, just kind of creating that grain to it. Then we have a printed version of the binoculars, as well as the physical version of the binoculars, so dual binoculars there. That's pretty cool. And he's wearing a sweater underneath that, a little bit of that pink piping to signify the unit that he's part of, and that 3D printed headgear, that crusher cap with those earphones. Really slick. I'm really liking that 3D printed crusher cap.
Yeah, it is
It's a cool
definitely
combo.
Yeah, it is definitely an intimidating looking minifig, which fits with this Panzer III very, very well. So awesome 3D printed element to add that extra layer of detail once again. Landon, thanks for making this fig. Cool. So that is the Designer Studio episode for the Panzer III. Make sure to tune in next time when we take a look at another Brickmania kit.